We should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. I do see people piling in and chat is working, so I'm just going to assume and go with it. We got to talk about New Hampshire, of course, and we'll talk about the final results, a little bit of the fallout. Plenty of salt is flowing. By the way, today I might keep it a little bit on the short side because my voice is a little bit hoarse from yesterday having to pontificate for an hour and a half and then do my morning videos and everything else that I have to do. I'm not under the weather or anything. Actually, I'm hyper caffeinated at the moment, but I think I'll take it a little bit more easy this afternoon and evening, just to recuperate a little bit. Of course, I go on Timcast in a week, so we'll talk about the New Hampshire results. There's a very, very strange story with regards to Jeff Dewit, the head of the Arizona GOP, and Carrie Lake. It appears that he attempted to bribe her into not running for the Arizona Senate slot. We'll be going into that. It's a major scandal. The left is definitely taking it up. They find it funny. I find it funny too. Of course, I like Carrie Lake generally. Also, an attack by the Telegraph on homegrown food. Carbon footprint of homegrown food 5 times greater than those grown conventionally. Conventionally being in a factory farm where your food is sprayed with all sorts of chemicals and so forth. My garden, meanwhile, is certified organic. I'm going to be making a shit ton of biochar, by the way. Already contacted somebody locally to get a good cord of hardwood, seasoned hardwood, and I'll be popping that in the steel can. If anyone has any tips on home charcoaling using just the 1 can method, like you have one of those, 30-gallon steel trash cans, you pack it with wood, you have a hole in the top for ventilation, then you build a fire around it. I've got a good burn pit out back. That's the easiest method. But I've seen other methods too involving a steel drum. I do have one of those, so I can swing it if I need to. I'm going to be making a lot of biochar. We'll be talking as well. It's a Substack article about the new Victorians, although right now for some reason, I got to click no thanks. It's trying to get me to sign up for email alerts. And I get plenty of those already. Business is starting to think more about a return on investment than diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, Trump pledging an Iron Dome system for the United States. We'll get into my nuanced thoughts about that as well. Lots and lots to talk about here. But again, I will probably keep it a little bit on the short side today because, had to do the primary last night. Next on to Nevada, where you've got a primary and a caucus at the same time. The primary is not sanctioned and the caucus is. Caucus, of course. It's the GOP we're talking about. So first, we'll talk about New Hampshire's fallout here. The results in New Hampshire couldn't be better from my perspective as a content creator. Donald Trump winning easily, of course, by about 12 points. In the end, only Grafton County, which is the county I was born in, actually. I was born in Hanover. That's the only one that went for Nikki Haley narrowly. Every other county went for Donald Trump. She got a boost in the Seacoast region, which was something that I expected. I explained last night that Seacoast, the edge of Vermont along Grafton, and like the Concord area, those tend to lean left. That's where Nikki Haley is going to get her boost of support. Everywhere else is pretty conservative in New Hampshire. It's just that if you look at like the Nashua Seacoast region, a huge bulk of the population is there, as well as, again, parts west along the Connecticut River. And so in the end, Nikki Haley lost. She seems to be ambivalent about this. She's pledging to continue to go on. I'm not sure why. It's sort of like, watching a Polish cavalry soldier, a dragoon, charging at a tank or something like that. I know that that's apocryphal, but, you get the reference. Watching a winged hussar attempt to lance a tank. It's quite something. Nikki Haley's delusional. I've come to the conclusion that she is literally delusional, as in her staying in the race is not the result of her wanting to embezzle funds or a book deal, or certainly not at this point a cabinet position, because she's a thorn in the side of the presumptive Republican nominee. Not going to get any favors from a continued Biden admin. I think she's literally batshit. I think she's literally flown the coop. I think she's legit nuts. Normally, when I say that somebody's batshit, it's okay, they're doing something that is batshit. But I don't actually think that they're insane. I just think that their behavior would be a demarcation of insanity. With Nikki Haley, I get the feeling she's actually goddamn nuts. Literally nuts, as in she's a lunatic. If you look at her foreign policy statements and then you look at what she's doing with regards to her dead campaign, it's a zombie campaign at this point. There's no other conclusion that I can possibly derive from that. I suspect that Trump now will run the field. I predicted that he would win, but he won by a small enough margin that she's crazy enough to stay in, which means fireworks in Nevada and South Carolina. From the perspective of somebody who likes to do live political analysis on streams, for me, it's really, really good. Trump, meanwhile, is rolling his eyes. He's like, what the fuck is this crazy bitch doing? Automatic selector. Everyone's favorite FBI PSYOP Patriot Front was prancing around here in New York City on Monday. What's their endgame? Yes, Fed Front decided to march in Manhattan briefly, and it was very entertaining. There are still people who think that they're legitimately not co-opted by the FBI. I don't think that every member of Fed Front is a Fed. I just think that a significant proportion of them are, and the rest of them are morons. Sigil Stone. Nikki Haley vowing to stay in? Does she know something we don't? Perhaps about plans the deep state has for Ronald Flump, coded for YouTube's TOS. Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. But I mean, she can't win in a legit primary. She's 35 points behind in her own home state. That's where she's currently gone. Poor Chris Sununu. He stumped around for a month in New Hampshire, getting some tail probably in the process. And now he has to say goodbye to his lover, Nikki Haley. I think Heels Up Haley is having a good time. Now she'll be romping around with whatever politician she can find in South Carolina probably too. So she'll still be getting some. And Chris Sununu got to ride her around in his Mustang and be all impressive and have his midlife crisis moment. And that was very, very funny talking about that the other day, of course. So New Hampshire goes to Trump, not even narrowly. It's by 12 points. Roughly as predicted. It was roughly in line with polling. Much like with Iowa, there wasn't a huge deviation. There was a late break among some unregistered voters for Nikki Haley, but as predicted, it wasn't nearly enough to tip the balance in her favor. Andrew Espinoza. Yo, little Stixie, I disagree. I believe Nikki's handlers are keeping her in to drain Trump's war chest and or step in if Trump gets locked up. The latter, maybe, but he doesn't really have to advertise the fact that he exists at this point. I don't think he needs to do more than a couple campaign stops in South Carolina. He'd be doing that, though, anyway in the general, because South Carolina is kind of sort of in play. So I don't really think that it is really a stumbling block to him. Nobody's doing anything in Nevada. Nobody goddamn cares. That one's already spoken for. Trump will win by 40, I think, there in the caucus. Sigil Stone, Haley is on tour to fuck a sleaze bag in every state. Yeah, I mean, she'll get some takers. Chris Sununu definitely, once he could ignore the crazy shit that she was saying, he certainly had a good time. Next news story. Who is Jeff Dewit? Carrie Lake bribery audio recording goes viral and leaves the internet baffled. It's not baffling to me, just to be clear. It's a little obtusely worded there from SK Pop. Recently, a secret recording of Arizona Senate candidate Carrie Lake with the GOP leader of the state, Jeff Dewit, has leaked online by the Daily Mail. On the tape, the latter can reportedly be heard asking Carrie Lake, it's not reportedly, it's real. She's confirmed this is not a deep fake. This is actually real audio that we're dealing with. At first, I figured that it was a joke because just so fucking crazy. To name her price to stay out of politics for 2 years, as reported by the Messenger. By the way, I'm pretty sure that that's illegal. There are very powerful people who want to keep you out, Jeff Dewit told Lake in the recording from March 2023. However, Carrie Lake can be heard repeatedly pushing back. That's one on you, by the way, Carrie Lake, saying this is not about money, it's about our country. As soon as the leaked audio became viral, netizens reacted in disbelief. In the wake of the ousted take, focus has fallen on the identity of Jeff Dewit. Yeah, he's the leader of the party there in Arizona. And it's not 100% clear whether he was joking, but he appeared to allude to the fact that if she got in, he would be killed. Joking about literally turning his car on and kaboom. Like if anyone knew that he was saying this to her, that he would be whacked, literally assassinated. It's not entirely clear that he was joking when he said this. I think it's disturbing that that anybody would think this is, Lake continues, only to be interrupted by Dewit, who tries to persuade her, saying he wanted to see a fresh face at the state Senate, but there were people in positions of power who wanted her to stay out of the political limelight for now. I wonder who those people were. When Carrie Lake demands further clarification on what's going on and whether it was an ally who wanted her out of the game, Dewit responds it was an instruction he got from back east. He also adds that these powerful people are willing to spend as much money as necessary to keep her out. Subsequently, he tells her to never let people know about their chat, as the conversation never happened. when Lake points out she was an ideal candidate to run for the Senate and how people who want to stop her are corrupt, Dewit seems to agree, while saying he might get in trouble for the same. The Republican chair of Arizona also said it was Lake's choice to make, and she can say no to the proposal, which she clearly has. This is weird, actually. It's not normal for a state party leader to attempt to coerce an individual to not run for office. It's even stranger when there's like, hey, name your price. We'll pay you not to run. Hey, you want $1 million? She could have taken the money and run, by the way. She probably could have gotten $1 million and said, well, fuck politics. I don't need it anymore. I can buy a nice ranch in my native Arizona, and I can just go and farm cattle all day. She could have taken a fall. But as the audio suggests, and as her Senate run suggests as well, she chose not to. So that's one up for her. Unless the call was entirely staged, which I can't imagine that it was, it appears that the Arizona state function wanted to keep Carrie Lake out. It's not, again, entirely clear why. She is a powerful candidate. She's a good speaker. Jericho13, morning Sticks. What online seed delivery website did you recommend a few streams back? Also, you should reach out to Forbidden Frontier and Nerdrotic to discuss occult topics. Thanks for all the hard work. I use World Seed Supply sometimes, although that's more like cactus cuttings and shit like that for the Psychonaut crowd, although they do have a lot of rare seeds. I just use random eBay vendors normally. Yeah, the people back east don't want Carrie Lake to be in the Senate and are willing to spend as much money as possible to keep her out. Elisha Jones, I'm curious as to why it was specifically for 2 years that they asked for Carrie Lake to bow out. That seems oddly specific to ask unless they weren't worried about something being present in 2 years. Yeah, there's some mysteries involved with this. Dewit will probably have to retire, probably have to stand down over this. I'm sure he's facing calls for his removal. Sigil Stone, back east? How east? Far east? East enough that they raffreich fa. And to quote Ivan Drago, if he dies, he dies. And I think back east means New York. I'm pretty sure it means New York. It'd be a shame if your legs were broken now, wouldn't it? Next news story. Carbon footprint of homegrown food 5 times greater than those grown conventionally. The study found individual garden infrastructure responsible for increased levels of CO2. This is not a bad thing, by the way. I happen to like carbon dioxide as much as plants do. Yes, apparently homegrown food is less efficient now. So your organic garden in the backyard or your allotment, they're talking about this in the European position too, is a bad thing. It'll release more carbon dioxide. I was unaware of the fact that my horseradish plants were contributing to climate change, but apparently that's true. I'll be expanding my garden considerably in this coming year. By the way, I'll be sequestering a shit ton of carbon in the soil because I'll be making a lot of biochar. Again, you can DM me with your charcoaling methods of choice and send me cool videos on charcoaling too. I've watched a few of them. There are several different methods to do it. I'm not going to have like a big ass pile of wood and do the Collier thing, but you can make a charcoal kiln out of a 50-gallon oil drum fairly easily. I have the tools to do that. You can apparently just take a steel drum. This is probably what I'm going to do. Seal it with the wood inside, cut a hole in the top for ventilation, of course, it doesn't blow up, and then you build a fire around it generally, and you'll get some good charcoal. I would like to say that if everyone was doing the biochar thing, we could all sequester a shit ton of carbon into our gardens, and you get a considerably higher yield. I've tested it myself. If you take that charcoal, break it down somewhat, some of it will be powder, some of it will be like pea stone, a few larger clumps, and then you infuse it, you fill it with water in the drum, and then you add compost tea, worm casting tea, any sort of fertilizer that has nitrogen in it. Don't use a chemical fertilizer. You don't need that. Anything organic, you can charge that biochar. You put it right into the soil, you till it in, and for decades and decades to come, that carbon is still there. And once it balances with the nitrogen, it provides a huge boost to plants. It helps resist disease. It helps to retain the soil structure, whether you're mechanically farming or not. If you're not mechanically farming, like I don't use a tractor or something, probably I'll be dead before the carbon's gone. And if you do that year after year, eventually you end up with a really rich black soil. Worms love it. It's more balanced as far as pH. It's perfect. They did this down in the Amazon. There's an area down in the Amazon rainforest bigger than England that's nothing but feet and feet of terra preta. That's what it's called. Biochar is a great thing. And so it's more than carbon neutral, my particular garden. I don't even know how much carbon I've pumped into it already. And then, of course, you can also get some wood ash out of it. And the wood ashes are good for root crops, things like potatoes. Yeah, Cry Havoc. I use horse manure after it ages and breaks down. Yes, manure has to be added every other year or so to some degree. Otherwise, it'll degrade. But with terra preta, you'll be dead before it all degrades off. The Happy Plague Doctor. The garden just got 10 feet wider. Oh, more than 10 feet. I'm expanding it in 3 directions this spring. It's going to take a considerable investment, but once I biochar it up, and really garden weasel it, the amount of crops that you take out of it for relatively little money, you're just literally buying seeds and a few other things. It brings a return on investment. You save a lot of money. Dutch Schaefer. I think the reason Nikki is staying in is because she knows shenanigans will go down in her favor. I think she suspects that, yes. Never Summer 160. A close friend of mine is running as the first Black gubernatorial candidate for Washington. I just got off the phone with him, and he says the exact same thing happened to Lake, happened to him. Semi-bird for Washington 2024. Not a huge surprise. It seems like a lot of weird shit's going on right now in politics. Sigil Stone. They're going to push regulating gardening out of existence in the name of environment and safety. People might get sunburns gardening outside. Better ban it for safety. Good luck trying to ban me from gardening. I'm going to expand it further, too. Eventually, there might be 2 gardens out back. No, maybe I'll have 3. I don't know. Maybe I'll turn the whole property into a giant farm. Ramon C. GTC. What you cooking today, Sticks? Just leftovers. We had stew the other day. Next news story. The new Victorians. Cancel culture is happening on a historic scale. Part 3. You can read through that Substack article. It's rather interesting. The basic premise is that the current leftoid cancel culture sort of authoritarianism going on is very much similar to the social panics of the Victorian period. The Victorian period, be very chaste, keep a pill between your legs. Women don't show ankle. Men, you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink, etc. Absinthe is the green fairy. It's going to bedevil you, etc., etc. And that particular period of time, you got to understand when we talk about like Victorian mentality, a lot of that's upper class. It's not necessarily that the average person lived that sort of lifestyle. And it was prevalent in the United States as well as in England. And it became more prevalent in the U.S. in the fire and brimstone period shortly after. You start getting that mentality, especially in the 20s and 30s, the temperance movement, things like that. Never worked, never made sense, and it was a moral panic on steroids. This article, and I agree with it, posits that the same thing is happening with cancel culture. That is that the leftoids of the modern era are basically Victorians. They're moralists. They're top down. They're authoritarian. They have a bunch of hang-ups with regards to sexuality. We see that on a regular basis. As well as personal behavior in general, they want to constrain it. They are the opposite of the founding goal of the United States, by the way, in the civic sense. So I happen to, the closest analog to modern cancel culture, the American Victorian era, as opposed to the British, which was similar in many ways but distinct, is the name given to the famously prudish, buttoned-up, and censorial period in America between roughly 1870 and 1914. We're talking indecency laws, book bans, speech regulations, the works. Though no historical analogy is ever perfect, in my estimation, the Victorian era is the closest parallel to cancel culture today. I would agree completely. In fact, more than just partially. Wartooth 88, I'm going to do a political show called Suck My Caucus. That's a good idea. GOP Congress. Arizona GOP Chair Jeff Dewit sounds like he just came out from an afternoon crack session with Hunter Biden sitting in their tighty whities on the blatant bribery audio. Yeah, I mean, he even sounds like bizarre. The way that he actually intones on that particular call is a bit bizarre, too. Yeah, he might have been on crack. Maybe he just got loaded and, he didn't even know what the fuck he was saying. I guess maybe that'll be his excuse. Iron Age Media, just wanted to say thanks again for the shout out the other day. I hope you enjoy Anvil. What's your thoughts on the direction of post-cancel culture? There will always be a cancel culture. There will always be moralism. It's just it changes form. So the kind of moralism you get like in the 80s, which tended to be moralistically Christian, has simply been swapped out for communist moralism. It's really no different. It's the same thing. The Victorian era is a good analogy, though, because it has all of those overlapping facets. Again, hang-ups about sex and sexuality, the attempt to regulate speech, the attempt to regulate people's behavior, an aversion to violence, aka self-defense, the idea of, well, staunch Victoria, I don't need my pepper box anymore. We live in civilized times. Till you end up visiting some third world country and you get Shanghaied or something like that. Sigil stone. Victorian era, more like the Red Terror. Yeah, another similarity, absolutely. Next news story from the Financial Times. Business is starting to think more about ROI than DEI. American companies are changing their approach to diversity and inclusion. I disagree with this. DEI is going silent. That is, that companies are still doing the equity and wokeness thing. They're just talking about it less. Some of them take up the opposite tactic and they talk about it even more to proclaim about how woke they are. They are, at the end of the day, just corporations. They exist to make money, and they'll still make money regardless of their thoughts on diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of the other bullshit. That being said, it is good that some businesses are departing from this. But don't expect it to go away. Be vigilant. Critical race theory in schools isn't going anywhere. DEI is not dying. I've warned about this. Actually, a few weeks ago, I made a video on the topic. Some eternal optimists were saying, well, is it peak DEI? It seems to be receding now. No. It's just getting quieter. And or it will change form. Great example. Back in the 1950s and 60s, go look up some commercial reels for businesses from that period of time. What do you see? Eagles and the Star-Spangled Banner and kids saluting and the cleanly suburban family are gathered around the barbecue grill and stuff like that. Americana. It was never about actual Americanism, though. These companies were branding in order to make money. That was the whole point. Being patriotic and slapping a picture of the American flag on your product was a good idea. Now, DEI is a good idea. Slapping the LGBTQ plus MAP 123 flag on your product is now the new way of branding. The basic concept will not change. It will only change in form, not in function. And so after DEI, you'll just get something else. Some other id poll will be used in order to sell products to people. The corporations, by the way, don't need encouragement in this. Sometimes people say, well, now they're being coerced into doing this. No, they've been doing it all along. Absolutely, they have. It's just snake oil sales, basically. It's just corporate branding. It's the same thing. Killer Kriegsman, UK believes in a strong American MAGA. Yeah, I want some more MAGA myself. Sigilstone. Has Styx looked at Pal World yet? It's open world Pokemon with rifles and shit, and you make the Pokemon work in your sweatshop. You can catch people in the Pokeballs and make them work too. That sounds very strange to me. But yeah, no, I haven't actually. I don't know anything about Pal World, whatever the fuck it is. Sounds like something for the tween demographic more than for someone like me. I got too much goddamn work to do. If I got a few hours to blow off, I'm going to read a book or something like that, or I'll cook a nice meal. I don't really do gaming anymore. Occasionally, I'll play some Victoria 2 or Napoleon Total War or something like that. And at some point, I'll probably do another Fallout game, but I just don't have the time for it. I don't really, Pal World. Explain more to me. It sounds bizarre. Is it like Pokemon Go? You can make Pokemon work in your sweatshop and catch people in Pokeballs and make them work there too. That sounds really weird. A little bit. How's the garden? Right now it is covered in a half foot of snow. I'm in Vermont, but it will definitely be improving this spring. I've got a rip. I'm glad. No, for anyone that didn't see it, I actually got this from a subscriber. It's a trowel knife for the garden. Actually, it's a garden knife. And, you can dig things out more easily. You can mark off exactly how deep you're digging for seedling purposes. And nick off roots with this. There's a little knock in it and nick them off. And that's going to come in very handy for the horseradish because I don't know exactly how many living clumps there are out there, but I think it's about 20. And each one has multiple roots the size of my forearm. So we're going to be processing probably about, I'd say, 10 gallons of horseradish this spring. Going to be quite a time. Nobody's going to want to be in the kitchen and be like I'll have to wear my gas mask probably when I'm processing that shit. Jay Reed, if the Dems replace Biden at the convention this summer, would the ticket be successful? I don't think so. Could a Newsom-Obama ticket win, or is Trump a shoo-in? I think they'd be crazy to swap Biden out after people genuinely did vote for him. It would look obtuse to them. Not a bad account. Well, anyone going to jail for the Carrie Lake thing? We'll see. I'm sure that there will be a little bit of an investigation into it because Carrie Lake has already confirmed that it's real. Vermont Red Pill, my cats are thrilled. Yes, indeed. The cats here will be thrilled when I eventually fence in the whole backyard and turn the whole thing into one giant fucking garden. Can't wait. There's going to be some clanking going on. Lots of horseradish, a charcoaling operation, bonfires, shit ton of carrots and tomatoes and stuff. I'm going to be making a lot of garden salads, that's for sure. Sigil Stone, it's very strange and fucking awesome. Try it. It's on Steam and Xbox. You might enjoy it. Pal World. I'll look into it. They can't starve you. In case you did not know, Sticks, your new garden tool is called a Hori Hori, pronounced Hori Hori. I had one for years. Game changer. Yeah, I can't wait to try it out. I'm going to make digging that horseradish out a lot fucking easier. And then the final news story of the day. Again, I'm going to keep it short today, probably under 40 minutes, actually, because I'm a little bit on the tired side after last night. Trump has long promised a beautiful wall. Now he's pledging the greatest dome ever. Envious, I like how they use that term, by the way. It says CBS, I think. Envious of Israel's Iron Dome, Trump has been telling audiences, we're going to have the greatest dome ever. Experts are skeptical. Of course, a missile interception system works better over a smaller area. Israel is a small country. It's like the size of Vermont, I think, actually. Trying to deploy an Iron Dome system over even the borders of the United States would be, I think, cost prohibitive. Having a better anti-missile, anti-air system is a good idea. You can draw it up along your coasts and shit. That's a good idea. I agree with Trump on that. I think trying to establish it over the entirety of our border system, though, would be very difficult. I mean, you could. It's just a matter of how much money it would cost and, what use really is it. We're not necessarily, at the moment at least, facing against a symmetrical foe with significant air and missile power. We're facing off mainly against third world militants. Having an Iron Dome domestically, and then what if someone hacks it or it pops off and destroys a couple of Boeing 747s or something like that? I like Trump. I'll be voting for him. I just don't know that this is a particular necessity. I like much of his messaging. Reform Section 230, get us uninvolved in some of the conflicts overseas that we're seeing, securing the border, attempting to reform the tax code, stopping Joe Biden's massive expansion of the IRS. These are all good things. Trump has mainly good ideas. We'll see how they follow through, assuming he's reelected. But as far as having like an Iron Dome system for the United States, I'm just not understanding exactly, number one, how you'd pay for it, because we're already deep in debt. Number two, what purpose it would serve. Where would you locate these anti-missile, anti-air systems? You can do it along the border. We don't worry about Canada invading us because they don't have the ability. Putting them on the Mexican border, migrants would just deface them. They'd be throwing rocks at them and shit like that, probably, so... Nelson's TAS and Game Archive. Look up Dabbleverse and Stuttering John if you want a new insane lolcow. Streams Pounding Beer Daily. Extern Whackpacker. Right up your alley. Cheers. I've heard of Stuttering John. Yes, absolutely. Interesting. Let's see. Sigil Stone. Pal World is about catching cute Pokemon monsters, cartoon monsters like Pokemon. And you can have them gather resources and build shit for you. And you can shoot guns and build MG machine gun nests manned by the monster. Weird. I'm going to look that up. Yeah, my apologies to people for today's stream being a little bit on the low energy side, but yeah. Vermont Red Pill. Lots of immigrants in Vegas now. Wonder how that's changed demographics. I haven't noticed much of a change myself. Rutland was always a little bit on the seedy and weird side anyway. Number one. And number two, the fact that there are more immigrants. Okay, so Rutland is only 97% white as opposed to 99% white. I haven't really noticed much of a change myself. Let's see. Tom Baldwin, he's taking the bait. Pal World, an upcoming action-adventure survival game by a Japanese developer, Pocket Pair. That looks interesting, at least. Kinda. Again, though, I don't really get to much gaming. Wasn't Nintendo or whoever the fuck developed it banning people for actually putting Pokemon mods in the game or something like that? I saw somebody posting about that the other day on Twitter, I think. I don't know. Melkor, funny there are way more votes in the New Hampshire GOP primary than Republicans. Yes, there was record-breaking voter turnout in New Hampshire, slightly nullifying the concept that Trump couldn't drive turnout, based on Iowa, where they were having a blizzard in negative 10-degree temperatures. I'm not goddamn surprised. Just a sec. Aaron Von Blair, here's a bribe for diapers. Clank, clank, poo. Thank you. Yeah, they can't starve you. I'm left with a lot of questions if they block Trump from winning or JFK him. What do we do with such a scenario? We write him in, collapse the Republican Party, and let them deal with the mess. I'm not a Republican, so I have no particular loyalty to them. And I mean, if you had like a Nikki Haley or a Jeb Bush candidate, what the fuck is the difference? I might as well flip a coin and vote for Joe Biden at that point. It'd be the same thing. But yeah, I'm not interested in becoming a Republican. So if it's not Trump, he's the presumptive nominee. If it's not him, and it's not like someone like a Rand Paul or a Massey, so somebody who's actually got principles, if they offer up a neocon, no thanks. I'm not going to fucking vote for them. I'll vote for the Libertarian Party, or I'll mount a write-in campaign, write in Tarl Warwick for president or something like that. Jason Lane, conspiracy theory. Nikki Haley is serving dual purpose staying in, waste Democrat money, and highlight in the media how popular Trump is to those unwilling or uninterested to see it. No, I think that she's just genuinely batshit. Like, I think that genuinely she is insane. I think there's something mentally wrong with her. Anyways, I'm going to go offline. I know I've only gone for about a half an hour, but again, I'm going to rest my voice so that I don't get all hoarse and fucked up. And yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Tomorrow I'll go for probably the normal length of time. It's just today I want to rest my voice. Probably going to have some tea, maybe some chamomile with honey or something like that. Have some leftovers and just take it easy for the afternoon. I did my bit last night. Melkor, probably 50,000 of Haley's votes were from Dems voting in both primaries, writing in Biden and voting Haley. That would be something they could not legally do. No, I think a lot of it was just undecided voters who didn't have a party registration, and many of them did cross over to vote for Haley. As predicted, though, some of them crossed over to vote for Trump, either because they like him or they think he's easier to defeat. I take the locals made that more of an issue than it actually is. Have you been to Burlington lately? Everyone says avoid it. The crime rate is up. Burlington has gotten bad. Yeah. Melkor. I already read that one. Derp. So yeah, I thank you to the about 4,000 people that tuned in live. Tomorrow I'll be higher energy, a little bit more clear, and hopefully there'll be more news that actually matters. Other than the Carrie Lake thing and talking about New Hampshire, kind of an empty docket today, and I got to fill it in for my 5 main videos tomorrow as well. So it's going to be a fun time. And then onward to Nevada, as well as at the end of the month in 1 week, I will be on Timcast IRL. So that day, obviously, I won't be doing my own stream because I'll be on somebody else's stream. Lots and lots happening soon, and then gotta wait like 7 weeks, and then the weather starts to warm up, and then things thaw. Then I'm going to be making a shit ton of garden videos. Like, we're talking 3 or 4 of them a week probably throughout the spring and summer and the early autumn. So it's going to be pretty great. That's about all. Peace out.